Good morning, everybody. My name is Cesar Yok. I'm the founder and executive director of the Bronx Institute for Urban Systems, and I'm doing a series called "The Question of Change." This has to do with talking about change. A couple of years ago, there was a conversation with a director of an organization, and she was saying that we need change in the community. And then that statement stood in my mind for about 2 years, thinking about what does it mean. Change happens all the time. It's not something that is you just stop and nothing changes. It's always evolving and always something is happening. So it's not really static. Change happens all the time. So what is that? So what should be the conversation regarding those things? Okay, so I wanted to put together a series from history. The last time it was about the Easter Island, and this one is going to be about the Mayan civilization. Why did I pick the Mayan civilization? So the main reason for the Mayan civilization was because I am from Guatemala, and I know some Mayans in the upland areas of Guatemala. And then it was a question that it collapsed, but it was interesting to say that the Mayans don't exist, but there are Mayans still alive. It just the structures and in the architecture and in the huge cities that were constructed many years ago that are not there anymore. So let me go over this PowerPoint presentation. So the first thing is the Mayans, the region that they occupy. So this area in the south is Guatemala. I was born in the city. I was born in Guatemala City in 1979. I was there until I was 9 years old. In the top here is Belize. You have Honduras, Ecuador, and some parts of Mexico. There has been some research done that there were Mayans that went to Teotihuacan, which is in Mexico. So this is their region. The Mayans were based on like city-states. So they all constructed their own pyramids and their own like political system. Mainly it was religious. They used the sun, and they understood nature. The scientists and researchers say that the Mayans were, we have early Maya, 1800 BC to 250 AD. Classic period of Mayan civilization, 250 to 900 AD. And then El Mirador is from the early Maya period. So that's from 1800 to around 250 AD. And that's in Petén. So they constructed pyramids. In the early research, the 1900s, researchers thought that the Mayans were just good people, docile, didn't do much, they didn't hurt anybody. So there was this myth, and that they were just good people. But in every civilization, it doesn't work like that. It's more complicated. You have political systems. You have a way of how these cities are structured. What is the classes? Who does what? Who has power? And this area was you have a lot of forests. So one key power that you needed to harness is the knowledge of water, the knowledge of agriculture, and also predictions. So the Mayans were very good at astronomy. They have a culture that was vibrant, and one of the stories that they follow was something called the Popol Vuh. Popol Vuh is a story about how the Mayans came about. So that's their story. The Popol Vuh has to do with so they say that there was different reincarnations of people or things resembling people. So that different they say that they were made out of wood, and the story says the people were made out of wood, but they didn't have any heart. Uh, they were made out of some form of it's a copper, so some form of metal. But the same thing again, they just were too violent to each other, and they didn't survive because the decision makers or the mythical gods, they just basically obliterated them, and they took them out of the earth. And then there was these two brothers that came out from that story, and those two brothers are the descendants of the Mayan. So here you have corn. Corn is a major staple in those civilizations, especially the Mayan civilization. He says, Popol Vuh Mayan creation story. He had the Mayan ball game, a form of writing, had an idea of 10 or 0, accurate and calendar system. They used the stars, the sun, and they follow the trends on when the rain, when it was a good time to plant. So this calendar system had the closest to 365 days that we had today. So that's a great breakthrough during that time. You're talking about more than 1,000 years ago. So they were really intelligent people that they used their own thinking, their own time. They had like scientists in that time. We would call them scientists, researchers. They had structures that follows the sun and the moon, mainly the sun, and then some of their architecture had relation to when the sun went down, and then went to perform rituals. But they were really into figuring out when rain comes in, when agriculture should happen. And one key thing about this civilization is that they developed writing. It's one of the few civilizations around the from writing, and they did it in Mesoamerica. Uh, so in here, there was one of the first ones to develop writing in this region of Mesoamerica, and they developed a mathematical system. You see the 0 in this picture, so it resembles a 0 today. It's a circle in here. It's not like a spiral or a circle, but it's closer to a current system of zeros. So they understood about like depicting nothing, like Zero is very kind of very like philosophical number. Like he doesn't mean nothing, but it means something when you put it with other numbers. So you could put one in zero, and, and then 100. You could put 100. So you put a bunch of these symbols to differentiate 100 versus 10. In Joaquin, part of their let's see the systems of beliefs. They had this Mayan ball game. I went to some of those pyramids when I was younger, and then I saw these structures that there were walls, and then you had these holes, concrete or some form of material. They didn't use concrete back then. They used stones and other stuff. And then I was just wondering, what is it? Why those things there? And then I was told later on that those were for ball games. So you were not allowed to touch the ball with your hands. You had to use your hips. You had to use your legs, your head. So it sort of resembles soccer in a sense. But this ritual was really, if you didn't win, you will be sacrificed. But some people at that time, it was an honor to be sacrificed. And then that was part of their kind of civilization. But there is research that says that some of them were from conquer areas. So there were many of them that didn't want to lose the game because they didn't want to be sacrificed. So this is bustling Mayan cities such as Tikal in present-day Guatemala were likely abandoned due to a combination of deforestation and drought. In the early research in the 1900s, researchers said that it was probably war that caused this collapse. There were other city-states fighting each other, and then they destroy each other. And then recently, it was found, or actually more research says that it was probably due to climate change, deforestation, droughts. Like I said, the Mayans rely on agriculture, the rain, and then the land, the forest. One key feature of their custom is the quetzal. The quetzal is a bird in that region that it was special in that time period. Even today, quetzal is the Guatemalan bird. It's our national symbol. So the quetzal was the feathers were used by kings, and then in that time, if you kill a quetzal, you will also be killed. You were not allowed to do any harm to a quetzal during that time period. So they had a strong connection with nature. And then the cities started becoming more complex. And then more research says that climate change, drought, overpopulation couldn't overcome a drought. In agriculture, in city states, you need to have a surplus food to be able to have food to the upper class. They said the Maya had only survived the 5 early droughts, but had continued to build and to grow. So why couldn't they weather the last 2? There was research that said there were droughts before, in other periods of the Mayan civilization, and they were able to overcome those droughts, and they adapted, and then they survived and kept going. But then something happened, and it said that why they couldn't weather the last two. What happened? Turner acknowledged that we may never have complete answers, at least not until a final question is answered. 1,000 years after the fall of the great Maya culture, the interior uplands of the Yucatan remain scarcely populated. So there's still research being done to see what happened. So right now, it's more leading towards climate change, drought, and overpopulation. Like I said, in the first image, you had a lot of city states, and then you had to cut a lot of these forests. And a lot of these forests, when you cut a lot of these forests and you don't have proper trees and root structures to be able to decrease droughts. So you study ecology, you know that you need to have enough plants and roots to withstand the water draining all the good soil from the space. They will say we overpopulation, we have more people there, and there was more need of agriculture. There was more need of putting these structures to build to take water from other places to agricultural areas, and then drought added to it, and slowly over time, people they said it started moving. They said they started moving away from those areas. In those kings, they had a strong connection with nature. They also needed to predict when these things were happening. So over time, it didn't make the right predictions, and people probably said that, okay, this person doesn't have these powers anymore. He's not. He's not really helping us, or she's not really helping us. I'm not really sure if there were other female kings in that time period. I know in the Incas they had a couple of them, but I'm not sure about the Mayan. But this led to more people not relying on them. It's saying that they can't really predict anything, so it's not helping us. It's not allowing us to grow food. In that time period, it was like say corn, squash, and beans. Okay, but some of them lasted longer. So a lot of times people think like they just collapsed in 900 AD. There was no more Mayans. That's not true. There was some city states that lasted longer. Like the Loch Peten was one of the last ones. Actually, the last city state to collapse. That was due to the Spanish. So it wasn't until 1697 the last Mayan city of Nochpeten fell to the Spanish. Most of us in Mesoamerica, in Guatemala, you know how the Spanish came in and they conquered, they colonized, and they basically destroyed the knowledge of the Mayans, thinking that they were evil spirits or something had to do with the devil because the way these books were drawn, and then a lot of this writing was destroyed. It's unfortunate that this happened. That's the key thing about civilizations and people. It's you destroy the books or the knowledge is basically you are destroying them, you making them obsolete. That's very unfortunate because we don't know how much the new astronomy what math they use, what was their lifestyles like, how did people think, and then what was this customs for other people besides the kings. So a lot of what we see in research and information, it has to do with the writing that was left on these structures, and also some of the books that were discovered later on uh, by people when some of these books were hidden from the Spanish. I think it was a priest that saw these books, and then he thought they was from the devil and they shouldn't be looking at this. So religion played a strong role in decimating the culture, and for us not knowing the customs of the Mayan. But then again, we still have descendants of Mayans. I spoke to a anthropologist about 20 years ago. I was wondering where my name came from. My last name is York, Y-O-C. So it was unusual. So some people, then I asked the anthropologist, and then she said that it was probably Asian, Chinese ancestry, or Mayan ancestry. So based on some of the structures that you see in these cities, they show the faces of the people in that time, and then I was looking at them, and they resemble me. I was like, they had the same nose as I do. I was just making that joke to a professor, and then the professor, yes, because they are your descendants. Now we're looking at it. Interesting. I was like about 18, 19 years old when I was told that. So that made me appreciate more of the Mayan culture. Right now, the Mayans are still there. I know in the 80s and 90s, the government of Guatemala did many things to upland areas and tribes and Mayan people during the Civil War. That's an unfortunate thing, the historical fact that happened in the country of Guatemala for 45 years. So I left in 89. I came here in 89. But they had traditions that I see when I go to the upland areas when I visit. You still have Mayans there. They had language, tradition, and deep sensibility toward the land and the sky to continue to shape the worldview. The Maya are guardians of their culture and actively work to rediscover their own past as they look toward the future. So we still have Mayans. Some people say that it's not physical things that make up who we are. It's actually our connections to each other, our cultures, our customs that connect us. Major structures will fall apart, but our languages and customs will stay for a long time. There are still Mayans here today, like I said, that show those customs. I've seen people doing incense and they pots, different pots, and they had their customary clothing. Some of the clothing comes from, how you say, from the conquistadores. These ideas, how they should dress, come from that. But they also mix up their own customs as well. I know in Guatemala is very religious, Catholic. So religion plays a huge role in customs and how society structure in Guatemala. So the reason why I wanted to just briefly talk about the Mayan civilization is like this connection to climate change. It's like an analogy. City states, we have a lot of nations throughout the world, and we are facing droughts and natural resource depletion right now, energy reduction because we have been using fossil fuels for more than 100 years. And then it becomes harder over time to extract fossil fuels. So this tells you that we have to be really conscious of our history, of our knowledge, to preserve our knowledge, to know what's factual. I know in social media, I mean, this is social media right here. It's Facebook and everywhere, TikTok, YouTube. So we have all this information out there, and then some people just put things that are not really factual, so we have a lot of misinformation. And that's the reason why I try to actually I source it, where I got this information. I try to look at sites, websites that I believe they have factual information, like the Smithsonian Institution. I used to be an intern at the Smithsonian Institution National Research Center, so I know they have quality information. So I source these things. That's one key thing that I want to do when I'm talking about these things, to source them and then not have misinformation. And then if I make some mistakes here and there, and then that's fine. There are other people could comment on it or just give me the source or where these things come from, you know. So yes, then again, to learn about what happened to the Mayan also help us learn about us today. You know, to be aware it's not about physical structures, huge structures. Like everywhere around the world in cities, it's a competition with skyscrapers about who has the tallest skyscraper, who has the best architecture, and then slowly who has the best technology, and not being aware that all these things, all this structure, and all these technologies requires natural resources. Yeah. And then later on, I'm going to talk about economic systems. So that will explain this in more detail. That what is key is society, cultures, customs, people, us, identifying us, being more open-minded, being understanding of other people's cultures and customs. You know, diversity helps humanity improve, progress, and move through this. So, hopefully, things will learn from here, and thank you, and I hope to get some comments and talk to you. And I will do more videos like this later on. I would try to do like 2 per month. Okay, so thank you. I'm gonna stop streaming.